What is the point if I can't tell the internet about it?
Honestly, the story of my life has become one is the point if I can't tell the internet about it. No, that's not true. But, to a certain extent.
I was like listening to a podcast and like this person was like, "Oh, we always want to like do stuff like for public consumption." It was the very like class
Yeah.
like I feel like almost like cliche at this point like, "Oh, you might enjoy it more if you don't do it for public consumption." And I'm like, "That may be true, but I'm too depressed and anxious to find out."
I think the other part of that conversation that is so nuanced is especially post-pandemic. Yes, it's like, are you doing it for public consumption? But also like my pivot question to that is, are you doing it for community? Because
Right.
community is so important. And it's very important to establish like local community, like where you physically are, but online is another way to establish community. And of course, like
Yeah.
parasocial relationships are a whole thing. Like I understand
Yeah.
that it's a very nuanced conversation, but the flip side of that my question is like, oh, you might have more fun reading if you weren't doing it for public consumption. And I was like, I have fun reading. I have more fun when I can post about it and then talk about it with all of my friends.
Right. Yeah, I'm like I didn't start a podcast for shits and giggles. I started a podcast because I enjoy yapping
Yeah.
endlessly about
Yeah,
books and like this is a way to have a captive audience. Sucker
exactly.
listener.
Yeah, no, I
Welcome.
know.
But you just started you restarted your
Restarted.
podcast today, right?
Yeah, today the
That's
first episode was
exciting.
out. Thank you. My very best friend Alyssa and I started it. This is so embarrassing, but it was 3 years ago. It was our last episode. And we swore that it had just been like 6 months. Like if you asked me, I was like, oh God, maybe it's been like 8, 9 months. Like life got in the way, whatever. And then we were looking up like, well, when was our last episode? And it was like literally in 2022. And we were like, oh shit. Yeah, so we've been wanting to relaunch that, and we just relaunched today and like dropped a new episode. So that's also
Exciting.
like just for, I mean, like it's for everyone. Obviously, we put it on the
Yeah.
internet, but one of the like I think the main reason, at least why I love doing it and why I assume Melissa also likes doing it, is it also like as we're long distance best friends. She lives in New Jersey. She lives in New Jersey. Like it forces us to sit down every week and like make a schedule and like get on Zoom together and talk about what we're reading and like talk about, which we kind of do anyway, but it like forces us to get on,
Yeah.
video and talk about it. So that's the part that's so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I did. I mean, this podcast, I mean, started this podcast when my sister and I like had both moved home during the pandemic. So technically we were in the same place, but
Yeah.
now she's in like Texas. And like and she was like in Nashville for grad school, you know what I mean? So like, yeah, I get
Yeah.
the like long distance like having to yap and like
Yeah.
we don't yap through the podcast anymore because she has like a big law job TM and like,
Ah,
works too hard.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and she's like, I can barely read for fun. The podcast makes it feel like it's a chore, so I don't want to do it
Yeah.
anymore.
Fair.
Yeah,
That's
which I was like,
valid.
I get. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's right. I feel like I hear that a lot. And it's like really
Yeah.
like I feel like podcasts used to be like, oh, you gotta like be in the same spot. But like I don't even know how to record in the same spot. I only have one microphone, so I'm like, I don't know what you want to do.
I
I can't
know.
be in the
I'm like,
same room.
I think we've recorded in the same place maybe once or twice. And I
Yeah.
feel like both times we've like probably had some audio issue where we're like, we actually have messed this up.
I was like, I don't know how to stop it from catching the, yeah, whatever. We're getting into the nitty. The listener's probably like, shut the fuck up, please.
What's
Um,
the point?
so before we really get into it, I would like to
Yeah.
ask you, especially because we're talking about reading for fun and
Yeah.
bookish stuff. What was the last book that made you want to stay up all night reading?
I think it was, and I know you just had her on the podcast, but I do think it was Ladies in Hating by Alexandra Rasti.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect. I think she crawled into my brain and just like cherry picked the things that would make me happy. It is sapphic, which I love, and it is a historical romance, like kind of rom-com. And it's like not quite enemies to lovers, but it's foes to lovers.
Yeah, rivals.
And
Yeah.
yeah, rivals to lovers. There we go. And they're dueling gothic novelists who get
Yeah.
stuck in a haunted mansion. Like, are you kidding me? And there's like a tiny
Yeah.
little dog. I'm like, these
I
are literally
love him.
Sir Francis Bacon.
Sir Francis
Uh,
Bacon.
it is all of my favorite things.
Yeah.
Lesbians, gothic writers, haunted mansions, tiny dogs. Like,
Tiny Tom.
you put that in a pentagram and you're going to summon me.
Yeah.
So that was, I think, the last one that I was like, I think I read it in like two sittings. Like, I almost pulled off
Yeah.
like sitting down and reading it, but I had to be responsible and go to bed, and it's
Yeah.
very boring. But I read it in almost one sitting.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my experience with that book too. That was, and I told Alex this when she was on the podcast, but like her books are the only books nowadays that like I've read exclusively with my eyeballs. Like I've listened to the
Mhm.
audiobooks too, but like I'm a very audiobook reader. Talked about this on the podcast. It's very hard to concentrate nowadays on like physical books, but all her books, because I've gotten them like as arcs, or
Yeah,
like her novellas were like ebook only before they got picked up by Trad. So yeah, Ladies in Hating, I like read it and then I went to bed and then I like woke up at 6 a.m. and I was like, I could go back to sleep. Or,
it was so good. It was so wonderful. It was a delight.
and you know what? If the Rapture does come tomorrow, I don't know whether you've seen those. Fingers
Hey,
crossed. Listener, for those of you just listening, she's crossing her fingers. Is we are recording the day before the Rapture. So if you are listening to
yeah,
this, we are either
we're left behind.
we've been left behind or it didn't happen shockingly.
I I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak for anybody or for you or for anyone. Me personally, speaking solely for myself, if the rapture is tomorrow, that would solve a lot of my problems.
Yeah.
And to be clear, I don't think I'm in said rapture.
I was like maybe 10 years ago I theoretically would have been picked up. But I'm like now I'm getting left
Yeah,
behind. And honestly,
yeah.
like so yeah, listener, if you're listening to this now, hey sinner, hey hey besties.
What up, atheists?
I mean, we are talking about today on the podcast. I should intro the podcast, myths and legends. So that is for the pagans,
The pagans.
the heretics, whatever. We're celebrating that today. So,
It is, and we're recording on the Bon.
oh
The
yeah, yes, it's
22nd
the
autumnal
equinox,
equinox.
right?
Yeah, so we are recording on a very pagan day. Good old Sephi went back down to the underworld today in the northern hemisphere.
Oh, bye,
So
P.
she's back with her mans.
Her lover. My only, my first introduction, and I think only contact with the phrase like Mabon, because I know like Samhain is like Halloween or whatever, but
Yeah.
I think it's Sia Acosta's The Mabon Feast, which is just like
Yeah.
a spider witch fucking novella, and I just feel like that feels spiritually right.
Yeah, it's correct. Today's like the first official day of fall. So it's a good day to record a podcast about myths and legends.
Yes. All right. So, hello, listener. Welcome to We Read It One Night, a podcast where we talk about the romance novels that make you want to stay up all night reading. I am Allison, a romance reader and your host. And today I am joined by.
Molly Tullis.
Hey, welcome, Molly. Do you want to say anything else about yourself?
Sure. I was like, yeah, I don't know what to say. Yes, hi. My name is Molly. I am first and foremost a reader and a romance reader, but I'm also a romance writer. And I specify typically in fantasy romances and paranormal romances that are all myth and legend based. Because the ex-evangelical to myth and legend pipeline is a water slide. It is just, whoosh. Yeah, it's a strong one.
Also have to ask, is Percy Jackson in there at all? Because that was in there for me.
You know what's crazy is I missed Percy Jackson as a youth, as a youth.
Okay.
So as a child, I was just like a year too old when Percy Jackson started coming out. Like I was just too old. However, I as an adult like 2 years ago read the first five and like
Yeah.
binged them and had the time of my life, and I loved them. So I loved Percy Jackson, but I they missed me as a child.
Yeah. Meanwhile, my I remember like seeing a book trailer for Percy Jackson for the Scholastic Book Fair, like in
Mm,
library class. So that's probably gonna age
uh,
me a little bit. But it was for the Sea of Monsters, and I remember turning to my friend. I was still deep in like I'd just been like officially baptized, like, I'd gone through the
excellent,
whole thing. I was in like
excellent.
Awana for any of you that
Oh my
know what
God,
that is.
Awana.
I was like a
Oh,
star Awana. My friend and I had met through Awana. She knew me as the girl that could memorize Bible verses like no one's business. Like, let me just set the stage. And
I blocked Awana out of my memory. Listener, if you don't know what Awana is, imagine girl and Boy Scouts. Girl and Boy Scouts, but instead of learning life skills or like how to be nice to people, you're just memorizing Bible verses.
yes. And playing, at least in my experience, playing insanely violent dodgeball in your
Yeah,
church gym.
weirdly violent. Yeah, game portion was always like bizarrely violent, which I guess isn't surprising looking
And
at
no,
the
like
group, but
that checks out.
whatever. It checks out. But oh my God.
So fourth grade, deeply Baptist. I guess we were technically Baptist. I don't know, evangelical. And
Yeah.
I turn to my friend and I say, we can't. That book trailer looks really cool, but we can't read that because it's not Christian. And little fucking hypocrite me a year later is like binging the first three books
Oh
like,
my
and
God, I
waiting
love
for the
it.
next one. So it only
I
took me a year
love
to
it.
cave. But
Well, so I was when the first Twilight book came out. So when Twilight came out, I was in middle school. I was in middle school. I was
that's,
like
ooh,
13.
excellent
I
age.
was boom. I was right there. I was like
Mhm.
12 or 13 when the first one came out.
Yeah.
So I was target. And I remember I was hanging out in the library after school because I was a very cool kid. And I was hanging out in the library after school. My middle school just had the best library. I'm sure part of it is nostalgia, but it was huge. And the
Ooh, yeah.
librarians like turned off half the lights because the fluorescents were so bright. So it was like dim. Like
Oh, that's nice.
it was still
Yeah, it
well
was like
lit,
mood
but like
lighting. It was cozy.
right. And as a tiny neurodivergent child who'd been under fluorescents all day, I was like, oh, this is sanctuary. And I remember the librarian came up to me and she was like, all of the kids are like raving about this new release. Like, you have to try it. And she handed me Twilight.
Oh my
And I
God.
was like, bet I'm in. And then I became obsessed because I was like the target audience.
And you're like, my life has been changed.
My life has been changed. But then my parents were like obviously very concerned because they're like, wait,
Yeah.
what's this Twilight that we're hearing so much about? But wait for it. But then my mom like skimmed it or something to like make sure it was okay
And
if we
she
could
got
read
in.
it. And she deemed it okay because Edward wanted to wait until marriage until they had
Oh my
sex.
God. The Mormonism came through. It
The
saved Twilight
Mormons.
for you.
So we were allowed to read Twilight because Edward wanted to wait until marriage. And my mom was
That's
like, okay, fine, you
incredible.
guys can read that then.
Fine. And then she's like, like when you guys go to bed, she's like, let me keep
I'm
up.
pretty sure
Was
she
she a
did
Twi
read all of
mom?
them. I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure she did read all of them because she took us to like the midnight. Because I was a freshman in
Oh,
high
I'm
school when
very
like the
jealous.
midnight movie came out,
Yeah.
um, and all that fun stuff. So it was like peak. Like I was in middle school and high school for like peak Twilight.
So, what makes you, as a writer, as a reader, drawn to like myth retellings?
The thing that always brings me back to myth retellings is because they have been retold over centuries, if not millennia, depending on the myth that you're talking about. When you are looking at a myth, you are participating in a long tradition of humanity that has existed long before you and will exist long after you.
Hmm.
And the reason that myths last as long as they do, and why they're so popular is because there are core tenets of human nature to be found in myths that are always, always relevant. And that's what the initial, if you're talking about Greek and Roman myth, for example, a lot of that is not so much about, oh, these gods and goddesses, but it's more about human nature
Right.
and decisions that we make and cautionary tales and things like that. I mean, a lot of like folklore started out as like, hey, we tell these stories to children to keep them safe so they don't go
Right.
into
Like, don't go into the
water.
woods.
Don't go
Yeah.
into the woods by yourself. Don't go into
Yeah.
water before you can swim. So, with myths and legends and folklore, I love it so much and I come back to it so much because no matter where you are in life, you're going to find something there that will resonate with you. And there's also just a beautiful thing of feeling like you are a part of a grand tradition. Like, I
Hmm.
write Greek myth retellings, and those have been, they were originally an oral tradition and then eventually were written down. They've been adapted 87,000 million times, and it feels, and potentially it's me just like blowing smoke up my own ass, but it's beautiful to feel like you are part of you're part of something bigger. You're
Right.
part of the grand tradition. You're the next person with a baton telling the Greek myth story, which is
Yeah.
really, really great to be a part of. And it's just something that I find very satisfying. And they're so fucking relatable. They're so fucking like,
Yeah.
women are always great. Men are fucking things up left and right.
Zeus is
Just
usually a
core
problem.
Zeus is a problem. Like that guy who fucks anything that moves tends to be someone that you don't want to hang out with.
Yeah.
Like these are just things that
They're
persevere.
universal tropes.
What can I say? Universal truths. So I really love myths. Yeah.
Who among us hasn't murdered their husband and then fed him, like beforehand,
Right?
fed him our children in a pie? Like,
Come
who among
on.
us
Come
hasn't
on.
done this? I did that last Tuesday.
Who doesn't want to turn a bunch of men into pigs and live on a
Yeah,
magical island by yourself? You kidding me?
exactly. Like,
Come on.
what's the prob, Bob?
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a dream.
Although, I mean, speaking of the Cersei myth, like, I guess, like, because there has been such like a
Hmm.
occur like a resurgence of like Greek myth, specifically
Hmm.
Greek myth, but also just like myth in general, like retellings,
Hmm.
not like they've ever gone away, like you said, like,
Yeah. But
they're
there's
the old
definitely
standby. But
there's a big upswing.
there's a big surge, and a lot of that is because like Madeline Miller,
Hmm.
Cersei, Song of
Hmm.
Achilles, and I do notice, and this could also just be like reader bias because I do read like mostly romance, but I feel like in general, when we're talking about retellings of myths and legends and even like fairy tales and folklore,
Hmm.
the stuff that gets retold most often, I feel like, is the like big sweeping romantic stuff.
Yeah. The big epics, if you will.
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, it's, and I know you have one of these, and I feel like everyone and their mother has read at least one Hades and Persephone,
Yeah. Yeah.
retelling.
Yeah.
And and that is like I feel like the only word that I can think of is child, and that's like it's come after. It's a thing that has come as a result of whatever the word for that is. Like I feel like for a long time, like Beauty and the Beast was like big in like romance books, and like
Mm.
that's still
Yeah. Yeah.
big. And like
Yeah.
Hades and Persephone is like a variation,
Hmm.
maybe variation is the term. It's like a
Variation. Yeah. A twist.
2.0 of that,
Yeah.
even though obviously it's older, the
Yeah.
myth. So why do you think that the romance stories keep are the ones that keep being told? Even though we as a society dunk on romance.
Well, the things that we dunk on as a society tend to be the things that are popular and they tend to be the things that women love
Right.
because we are built on a society that is capitalistic and patriarchal in nature. And that wheel only turns if you are diminishing women and women's interests. So that's why we're seeing those things sort of like dunked on. And I think one of the reasons that we see resurging of like Greek myths so much is because people are looking for a happy ending. Like,
Hmm.
people want a happy ending. People want to feel seen. They want to feel known. They want to feel safe. They want to be comforted. And I think we are seeing an uptick in a lot of those big, grand, sweeping stories because we want to see ourselves in those and we want that happy ending and we want a love story that will transcend decades, millennia, centuries, whatever, and somebody that is like fated for us. That's like why Fated Mates is
Mm-hmm.
always like doing so well. And again, not to like blow smoke up my own ass and like get very, not to get like very philosophical, but in the next, I think it's like the next 5 years or the next decade, they're predicting that 50% of women will be single and child free, which is like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest portion of like
That's
that has
insane.
ever,
I haven't heard of that.
yeah, 50% of women, yeah, will be single and child free. And, it's really funny because the news coverage around this is like
Oh
doom and gloom and oh my
no.
God. And I'm like, I don't know a single child free woman who's upset about this news. Like, I don't know what to tell
Yeah.
you because there's a greater and greater gap between, especially in like Gen Z
Right.
and millennials. I mean, I'm 31 and I'm a millennial and I'm dating and I see it all the time. There's a
Yeah.
huge gap in education and emotional like capabilities and like emotional stability and like desires in life. There's a huge gap between, and this is just looking at heterosexual relationships, obviously. There's a huge
Mm-hmm.
gap between like men and women, like what men want and
Right.
what women want. And women are not putting up with things that they don't want just for the sake of like being married. And
Right.
prior to millennials, really, like you would quote quote settle because it meant you got
Right.
married and like that was important
Right.
for reasons that thankfully no longer exist, allegedly now, knock on wood. Um
For now.
yeah, screams into the void. Anyway, I'm getting so off track and I'm such a
No,
yapper.
no,
But
no.
as we're saying,
I'm with
as we're
you.
seeing, as we are, yeah, like as we see that divide, there are just absolutely like more and more women who are like, yeah, no thanks. I'm gonna like read a romance book tonight with a face mask on and like in
Yeah.
my perfect girly apartment and like not have to put up with somebody's broke son. Um, and what's so fascinating is they've done studies, and when you read romance, the same parts of your brain light
Yeah.
up as when it's happening to you. So when you read romance,
Okay.
the same things are happening in your brain chemically as if you were like on a date that was going really well.
Okay. Like actively
Like
being
it
romanced.
lights
Yeah.
up, yeah, like it lights up the exact same sections of your brain. So I'm
Yeah.
like, I can get almost the same dopamine receptors like in my pretty girly
Right.
apartment and like again not putting up with somebody's son. So I think there's a lot of like political socio and economic factors as to why we're seeing this. It's a
Right.
very long answer to your question is why do I think we're seeing all these like big Greek myth love stories? It's because we want it. We want the big happy
Yeah.
ending. We want the trials and the tribulations, but the couple that still makes it in the end and we want to see ourselves in
Right.
that. And it is something that people can identify with no matter what period of time that you're in. It's something that people want. And I think there's a bunch of myths where they were obviously all originally, a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them were originally dictated by men and written down by men.
Right.
And I think now we're seeing a lot of like women authors stepping up to the plate and being like, okay, but I'm telling this from the female character's point of view now. Like, thank you so
Mm-hmm.
much. I'm forgetting who it was. I'm going to butcher it, but Clytemnestra came out,
Mm-hmm.
and that looked at the Trojan War, but from the perspective of Agamemnon's wife, who like he killed one of their daughters for success in war, and then
Yeah.
brought Cassandra back as like a war prize.
Yeah.
And then, if you're reading the original Troy, Iliad, and Odyssey, it's like, oh no. And then his like angry wife killed him. And it's like, of course she fucking did. Like,
Yeah.
he killed their daughter. Of course she fucking killed him. Like,
Yeah.
so you're seeing a lot of like women authors also being like, I love these stories, but I want her story. Like, I want
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
which is also very fun to do. That's what I always like to do. It's very
Yeah.
fun.
No, I bet. Yeah. I mean, that does bring to mind the fact that like you said, like Greek myths especially like there's a patriarchal foundation to them and like the
Mhm.
way that they've been preserved and the way that they've been told, just as with history, there's a patriarchal foundation
Yeah,
to the way
yeah.
it's been
Well,
preserved.
also the thing that's so interesting is like there's actually I'm not a scholar by any means, but as an armchair they say an armchair psychologist, as an armchair historian, what's so interesting is like men wrote those myths, but also like there were so many ways that like women were fairly liberated in like
Mhm.
different parts of ancient Greek life. Not all of it, for God's sake, like not really
Yes.
like the not the Roman Republic or anything. But
Yeah.
if you look at like the Minoan culture was very female forward, like Spartan culture was very female forward. It's just that like the person who then went and picked up the pen was then a man,
Was
and
a
like,
man,
you
right?
know, his interpretation of it. There's a couple of stories around Dionysian rituals, which were like these
Mm-hmm.
crazy
Yeah.
bacchanalia.
Bacchan yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, well, women went out and like it would be women only, and they'd get super drunk and have an orgy and go crazy. And now a lot of historians are questioning, like, did women actually do that, or was that just like a man's fantasy? And he was like writing, you know, like that's what the man
Yeah.
thought women did. I like to think that they did it, but you know, it's interesting also, like
Yeah.
who holds the pen.
Right. History is written by the victors. But it's like, yeah, like you said, it's interesting to see like this thing that has been very patriarchal historically, now
Yeah,
being so prevalent in a genre that is his
yeah,
also historically more feminist and like more like quote unquote, and I know this is like a tired slogan, but like for women by women. Well, like I know we're trying to retire that because it is there are more, not just
yeah.
women. It feels like a little bit of like a juxtaposition of like, oh, we love this
Hmm.
so much. We love like Hades, like our shadow daddy, but
Yeah.
like, you know, but there's absolutely myths when like Hades was like a real big fucking dick, I'm sure, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's very interesting, the things of Hades. A lot of people would like to say these days, like, oh no, like in the original, he didn't kidnap her. Da da da. It's like no, like he did. Like there aren't any like we don't have any ancient sources of her like going willingly. However, a
Yeah.
lot of people who are like still Hellenistic or like are interpreting the text, if they're interpreting the text from a very almost a more spiritual or esoteric place, you can
Yeah.
technically say that like, well, Persephone was already the queen of the underworld. Like that was who she was always going to be. And
Yeah.
Hades popping up and pulling her down there was like a manifestation of her own inner desires. I mean, you could get really esoteric with it. It would be a manifestation of my innermost desires. I tell you that much.
Yeah.
If
Hades anytime now.
anytime, go for it, buddy. I'm all yours.
Me wading into the sea as a middle schooler being like
Seriously,
Poseidon, at any
Poseidon
point, if you wanna zip me on
would
down,
be
that would be so fine.
would be fine with me.
I
No
was like, I will
complaints.
take Hades, I will take Poseidon. I was like, Zeus, you stay up there.
I'm good.
The other two, open and
The other
willing.
two, fine with me.
Take the wheel. Yeah. Well, we see, like, I wonder whether, like, obviously Greek myth retellings, I feel like I don't think anyone would argue are like the most popular
Yeah.
mythology that like we're taking with from, and that's just baked into America and the quote unquote
Hmm.
West and all of
Yeah.
that. But there are other mythologies, obviously,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
both Western mythologies. I mean, there's like, Norse and there's Celtic
Hmm.
and, Gallic and but then there's also, Chinese mythology and like
Hmm.
Hindu mythology and Egyptian mythology. And I feel like we have been seeing more like books from authors that
Yeah.
share those identities that like are being published. And I
Yeah.
guess how much would you think, and I'm not expecting you to be like an expert on this, but like just like your opinion, let's muse on
Yeah.
this. How much do you
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
is that a response to Greek myth retellings being like so popular and this like this sort of like patriarchal retellings like first becoming popular?
I think that there's always a hunger for myths and fantasy, and like I think it's almost more to do with the rise of fantasy and like
Hmm.
romantasy than necessarily like Greek myth. I
Yeah.
think it's so fantastic that we're finally getting some other myths. Like, look, as somebody who loves Greek mythology and writes Greek
Hmm.
mythology, there are so many other incredible cultural wells to pull from. And there's so many other authors who are doing an amazing job
Hmm.
with different pantheons and mythologies and folklores, and they're so good. So, who's, I think it's probably more to do with the rise of like fantasy
Yeah.
overall, I would say. But let me tell you, some of my favorite retellings are ones that are not Greek myth.
Yeah.
And they're done just so beautifully. So,
Yeah.
it's for me, it does not matter where it's from. If you tell me it is a myth interpretation or a myth retelling,
You're
I'm sat.
ready.
I'm on board. I'm ready. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 I will eat that shit up.
I will eat it up every time.
And okay, so I've seen people talking about, and I feel like you kind of like touched the surface of this when you were talking about people looking at people who are more Hellenistic, like looking at
Mhm,
like Greek mythology from a more spiritual point of view. Like there are not just
mhm,
Greek mythology, but like other legends and folklore. Like there are still
mhm,
people who practice
mhm.
that like
Yeah.
as like a religion, as a
Mhm,
culture. And I have
yeah.
seen less so in terms of Greek mythology and more so in terms of like Celtic, like
Mhm.
I have seen a little bit of like a backlash of people being like, for lack of a better term, like my culture is not your costume or whatever. You
Right,
know
right,
what I
right.
mean?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
like, what's your
Thoughts?
opinion?
Thoughts?
Thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, I think thoughts and prayers. I think anytime you're approaching any material like that, if it has cultural significance, like be respectful, clearly. I think that's the thing that's super important. Don't play in a space that's not yours to play in or where you haven't been invited. I think there are some things, for example, like I'm working on a series that's set in New Orleans right now.
Mhm.
And this isn't quite myth, but when we're talking about cultures and religion and doing those retellings respectfully, for example, there are so many different forms of spirituality down here in New Orleans. You
Mhm.
have Catholics, you have like pagan witchcraft, you have a little bit of the Hellenistic stuff sometimes, which is how many like Greek myth references are like in Mardi Gras, like all the crews and the parades are named after Roman
Mhm.
gods. And you also have obviously a huge voodoo and hoodoo
Right.
and like African spiritualism movement. Not movement, sorry, that's the wrong word, but like African spiritualism. And if I wrote a book about New Orleans that didn't have those practices in them, it
Mhm.
would not be a good book about New Orleans because it would be very
Right.
whitewashed and it would be very boring. That being said, voodoo, for example, is what's called a closed practice. So a closed practice means that you need to be invited to partake in it by someone who is already in the practice. So
Okay.
you can't just go and learn it, or you're not supposed to, and you can't participate in it. And typically, it is to preserve like the sanctity of it, protect it against cultural appropriation, and things like that. You typically see it in more marginalized groups and religions and practices because they want to keep it from
Mhm.
being, ripped apart or appropriated. So I feature those things in my book, but you never see it written out on page because
Mhm.
it's closed. So I have a character who is a voodoo practitioner and who was born into it, and that is their culture. And it's a huge part of who they are, and it's represented in the story, but they don't ever do quote, quote, this is not the correct terminology, but like they don't ever do magic, quote, quote,
Yeah.
on page because the rituals and the things that they would be doing to practice that
Okay.
are closed. It's closed. It's none of my
Right.
business. And I'm not the
Right.
person to tell you about it. So
Yeah.
it's about being inclusive and knowing like where you're allowed to play and like where you're kind of allowed to like step and things like that. I think everyone is going to have a different opinion. Some people might be offended by some things and some people might not be. But if you're just going with respect, understand if it's closed or open door practice. I did
Mhm.
get comments when I was putting out my Hecate book. I got comments from somebody who is a Hecate, like identifies as a Hecate priestess and like practices
Hmm.
in Hecate, like Hecatean tradition. And she had commented and she was like, I don't know how I feel about this, like
Hmm.
having like a spicy romance book about her. And I'm also like openly polytheistic pagan. And I was
Right.
like, hey, like I actually like work with Hecate all the time as well. Like I did it in a way like Hecate is known for being a goddess who wasn't a virgin, but also didn't have a consort.
Okay.
And that's pretty rare. Most of the Greek gods and goddesses are either
Yeah.
married or they're famous for being a virgin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hecate is neither. So I was like, I was comfortable doing a book about her like shirking the picturesque of like of like having a spicy romance book because I was like, this is something that falls under like it's okay. She's not married to somebody else and she's not like supposed to be a virgin. Like I probably wouldn't do a spicy romance retelling about any of the gods and goddesses that are like canonically a virgin, just because I'm like, no, I
Right.
don't want to. That's not part of the story. I also will never touch. I think it also comes into play of like it's a whole. I mean, you can talk for hours. It's a whole nuanced conversation. But
Right.
my
Yeah.
overall thing is like be respectful. Know what's a closed practice, what's an open practice. You can do very basic research and to find that out and understand the myths of what you're writing. And so you're not writing something that's like super off book or like offensive or like
Right.
not accurate to who you're portraying. I think another thing is I love Hinduism, and Hindu mythology has some amazing stories.
Hmm.
Amazing stories. I would never write that in a million years because that is
Hmm.
also a religion with billions of people on the face of the
Right.
earth right now. And like that is not my culture. Like I do not like I was not raised in it. I consume it constantly. I love Hindu mythology retellings, but like
Hmm.
also, what do we call mythology and what do we call a religion? And
Well,
why do we
right.
call it that? Because
Right.
let me tell you, we don't say Christian mythology. We say Christianity, but we don't
Right.
say Hinduism. We say Hindu mythology. And like,
Right.
what? Why is that? you know? So I think there's also a lot of looking into, okay, well, why are some things religions and why are some things
Right.
mythologies? And
Right.
like poke that bear a little
Right.
bit and unlearn a smidge because even if you're not a Christian, it's referred to as Christianity. But
Right.
broadly
Exactly.
in the West, you'll say something like Hindu mythology. And it's like, well, that's Hinduism.
Right.
I like to say Christian mythology whenever I can. And oh my God, it is so entertaining how fast it will piss off a Christian. It is so entertaining how fast it will piss off a Christian. But we have to look at why, like, white Abrahamic religions get the religion bucket, and then a lot of other
Right.
things, it's like,
Right.
oh, mythologies, and it's like that's a religion that like billions of people practice. Come on, and I don't have all of the answers to that, but that is something that
No,
I'm
it's
also
a
constantly like it's an evolving thing. I learn all the time. I'm like, oh, hey, cool. Okay. So I won't use that or I will learn, you just always have
right.
to be open to learning and researching,
Yeah.
what myths you would feel comfortable and it's okay to do a twist on and like which ones it would not be
Yeah.
okay to do a twist on. So it's like everything. There's no like, yay, do it
Yeah.
or yay or don't.
Yeah.
It just all depends. Just, do a lot of
Yeah.
research. Don't be afraid to be corrected. I'm going to keep doing myth retellings. That's the beauty of myths is that they're
Yeah.
born to be retold and things like that, but
Right.
just also make sure you're not stepping where you shouldn't be.
Well, speaking of Christian mythology, I have percolating in the
Ah,
back of my mind for a long time. I've been like, do I write a short story collection about the apostles? And I was like, I was like, Jesus and Judas. I was like, that's going to be perfect. Enemies to lover, second
canon.
chance romance. Like,
Second chance
I'm
romance.
like,
Let's go, baby. If
mm.
I ever did something like really, real, if I really wanted to, I all the time am percolating on so many Christian mythology, like so many Bible stories that I would want to
Yeah.
to remix. When I'm talking about myth and fantasy, there's a whole folder of like Bible. They're not retellings, but there's a whole I got a whole folder, but like I was raised in that. Like
No, yeah.
I'm not a Christian anymore, but like I was raised in white Christianity in America. So
Yeah.
like that is a sandbox that I feel comfortable
Yeah.
essentially mocking and like doing
I'm allowed to do it.
but that's the whole point, it's like it's
Right.
also like with the with the world that we live in the Western world where
Right.
Christianity and whiteness are, the defaults. And,
Right.
you're not punching down when you're
Right.
making fun of white
Exactly.
Christianity. You're not punching down. Like,
Yeah.
come on. But
Yeah.
man, some Judas, Jesus fanfic. Come on.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
I'm also of the opinion that Samson and Delilah is like ripe
Oh,
for a romance retelling. Like
so
if anyone
true.
wants to do that. I've been arguing that since college. Like we read like I took a class on speaking of the rapture of
Yeah.
like apocalypse literature, and like we read there was
Yeah.
one about Samson and Delilah, and so like we had like a whole discussion, and I was like, Delilah, my girl. Like I took over the
Oh,
class. My professor was so fucking pissed at me because I would not stop being like, no, listen, she was right. She is malign. I was like, he loved her and she loved him.
what's really fascinating is there's an amazing book called God and Anatomy,
Ooh,
and it looks at the modern white evangelical Christian God. So
yeah,
that Jesus, who is very different from canonical Jesus.
right,
Like
right,
canonical Jesus was a brown socialist, and white evangelical Jesus, we don't know him.
yeah,
But it looks at that, and through anthropology, she basically shows you where all of the Jesus myths like came from. And
yeah,
she's like, so actually, they stole this from here, and this already
yeah,
existed, and then this, and it is the
right,
most incredible. If you like myth and anthropology, it is the most
yeah,
incredible thing of like, so that was already a
yeah,
god, and they most likely took that story and then turned it into
right,
this, and like, yeah, it's really fascinating. And also, if you
yeah,
look at comparative mythologies, is one of my favorite things in the
yeah,
world because there's so many Christian. I don't know if you heard this growing up, but like I heard a lot growing up as an evangelical Christian, like our God's the only God that came back from the dead. Like our God's the only living God. Like they loved that shit. I don't know if you ever
yeah,
heard that line of rhetoric. Yeah.
yeah. I'm sure that was on a t-shirt at
It
some
was
point.
yeah, like the living God. Our God's the one that came back from the dead, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
I'm like, if you spend 30 minutes reading other mythology, there are so many gods that come back from the dead. Like, so many of them. They're all older than the Jesus myth. Like,
yeah. Even back to the fucking Greek pantheon, like the
yeah,
Olympians were like eaten by their literal father.
yeah.
Like I feel like that counts.
Osiris it raised from the dead,
Yeah.
or not Osiris. Yeah, I think Osiris. I'm gonna get him
Yeah.
butchered. That's one. Um, I'm fairly positive. Correct me if I'm wrong, internet, but I'm pretty sure there's also a myth of Krishna that involves him coming back from the dead or going on a similar journey. Like there are so many. I feel bad because I love comparative mythology that I'm like getting all of them wrong. But like I said, armchair historian, guys, armchair.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just fascinating because when you look at it, it's like,
Yeah.
no, like that's actually not true. But
Right.
they get to be a religion, not a mythology, and it's a whole thing.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Deconstructing live and in person.
Live, it's really funny because when people ask me to come on and talk about myths, it normally takes 4 minutes for me to also start talking about deconstruction because they're so
Yeah.
interwoven for me.
I mean, I feel like that's like universal. I mean, not specifically like Christianity, but like, I mean, like we said, like mythology was religion at some point, and all of
Right.
it, and like mythology and folklore and legend all go hand in hand. And like
Yeah.
the line between what is fact and what is fiction for all of those
Right.
things is blurred, not simply because like oh, like, can you prove that like a man lives on top of Mount Olympus and shoots lightning bolts? But like,
Right.
but like because it's like who decides what's fact and fiction, who decide like because it's like such like an inherent part of how we live our lives,
Yeah.
regardless of whether we're sort of consciously aware of it. Like it's so baked into like
Yeah.
everything that we do. Like even like I'm thinking of this is another current event inspired thought, but how like the changeling myth for
Yeah.
which is a big part of like Celtic Gaelic like
Yeah.
folklore, the idea that the fairies replaced your baby with a fairy with like a terrible fairy
Yeah.
baby right around the time that autism usually like develops in
Yeah.
infants.
Yeah.
Like this is how we like how we interpret the world. And I feel like this like I feel like we understand that like the Greek myths are like they're like oh well they're just trying to understand like the weather and like all of these
Yeah.
like natural phenomena and like that's how they came up with it. But like we're still trying to do that. We still know fuck
Yeah.
all about the
Yeah.
world and the universe.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We're still just trying to shoehorn shit in there.
Right. And you know what? Sometimes I'm like, let's just leave it alone.
Just
It's
leave it
like
alone.
it's like how like we know more about space than we know about the oceans. And I'm like, maybe that's for the best. Maybe
Yeah,
we should
no,
leave
leave
the
the
oceans
oceans
alone. I was like,
alone.
I don't need to know what's down there.
I don't fuck with the ocean. And by that I mean like I do, but with like great respect. As in like I don't think we're supposed to know and I don't want to know. Thank you so
I
much.
fuck with the ocean insofar as I love a good Kraken romance, and
Fair.
that's it.
Valid. Yeah, super valid. Okay. Yeah.
Like I
Yeah,
love
yeah,
a
yeah.
I
That
love when
checks.
the tentacles come into play. Like great,
Love
that's all
it.
I need
Great.
to know.
That's what I need to know about the
Don't.
ocean. Can you fuck a kraken? That's the
And the
only
answer is
thing that
yes.
I think that is the only thing I want research dollars to be spent on. Not fucking fiber optic cables or how do we get oil
No,
out of the deep sea. No, can you fuck a
like
kraken?
a Kraken. Would the Kraken be DTF? That's all I
Probably.
want to know.
I hope so. In my dreams, yes.
I hope so. Anyway, would you care? Do you have anything else to say about
No, I mean I'm good. I'm
mythology?
good. I'm good. I always said.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a dangerous question, but I think I'm good.
You're
I
like,
think I'm
boy,
good.
do I.
Do boy do I like crack me
Eh.
up.
Shall we recommend
Yes, yes, yes,
some
yes.
myth, legend, fairy tale retellings? Obviously, your books, first of all, listener.
Yeah, I write those. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Molly's
I write those.
books.
I have a collection of ancient Greek mythology retellings called the Asphodel series. They are interconnected standalones, so you could pick one up without, you don't have to read them in order. Um, there will be some giant spoilers if you read them out of order, but the spoilers are that everybody gets a happily ever after, which I'm very open that I only write HEA.
Right.
So that's not really a spoiler.
Yeah.
Um, they are ancient myth retellings in terms of they take place in ancient Greece and they are gods with power. So it's
Hmm.
not, oh, it's a retelling, but it's in a sex club or like a
Right.
mafia. And like I read those. I'm not
Yeah.
knocking those. I read those. They're great. But these are like ancient, like it's in
Yeah.
ancient Greece. They're gods with power. So I have
Okay.
those. There's seven of them, I think.
Hmm.
Six maybe. I don't remember. So if you like ancient Greek myth retellings, you can check those out. I also have a four-book series, more interconnected standalones, because that is my favorite thing to write, that are paranormal romance. So they are a little shorter. They're set in alternative universe, but like a modern Edinburgh. So like there are cell phones
Oh,
and
nice.
they
Yeah.
take place in this year. But
Yeah.
it's an alternative universe because magic is real and so are the Fae.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a really fun one. That's like a academia based romance. So it all takes place
Oh,
at
nice.
the University of Edinburgh. It's not with students though, it's with like faculty. So everybody's like an
Yeah.
adult. And those are all interconnected standalones. So I've got like a werewolf shifter one, I've got
Oh,
Fae,
nice.
I'm working on a siren one right now, but those are all Celtic and Gaelic, like
Yeah.
myth based.
That did bring to mind. back to the discussion thing. I know like I
Yeah, yeah.
transitioned to rec. That brought to mind though the like the distinction because you have one that's set in like ancient times, like with
Uh-huh.
myth. I mean, obviously both of those are like fantasy paranormal, like you know what I
Yeah,
mean? Both of those like magic is real.
yeah,
But when we're looking at myth retellings, like there are the ones that are romantasy, like we were talking about, and
yeah.
like that are magic and paranormal. And then there are the ones that are like Hades works at an office or like is like a billionaire CEO,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Do you have a preference for like which ones you prefer to read?
I read all of them. I read all of
Yeah.
them. So I don't know if I have like a preference of which one I read because I read all of them. My personal preference, which just means I'm a little bit more excited to get into it,
Hmm.
is when they are gods with powers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care the setting as much. I like gods with powers because, like, to
Yeah.
me, that's half the fun. It's
Right.
like I want
Right.
gods with powers. And I think that's the most fantastical, magical element is like they're
Yeah.
gods with powers. But I understand there's plenty of like mafia, billionaire, businessmen,
Yeah.
Hades, and I get it because they are still retelling some core tenets of Hades as a
Right.
character. Like he fits into those
Right.
archetypes. So I get it and they're valid. And I eat them up. I read them all the time.
Yeah.
But my personal favorite is like give
Yeah.
me the fantasy, give them powers. Like
Yeah.
I want the myth,
Yeah.
the big mythological
Yeah.
bit of them. Um
Yeah.
those are probably like my favorite ones.
And I mean, that makes me wonder, like, does it dilute the original mythology because like mythology is magic?
I don't think it dilutes it. I think that, and sometimes I don't know if they're necessarily like adaptations at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I think I call them more of like remixes.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you put Hades in like a mafia setting or something, like you are staying true in theory to the core tenets of like Hades as an archetype and like Hades as a
Right.
character,
Right.
and I get that. You're just like remixing a lot of elements
Yeah.
of it. You're not necessarily like adapting as much,
Yeah.
but also like I'm talking out of my ass. This is just like how I kind of categorize
No,
it.
yeah, yeah.
I just think it's a smidge different than like a retelling, but I don't think it dilutes it.
Yeah.
It's just like picking different parts of the story to adapt.
Right. Right. And I mean, like, arguably the core tenets of all mythology and folklore and legend, like, is like humanity and how we view
Yeah,
ourselves and how we view each
yeah,
other.
yeah,
And and human nature, even if it's like God's doing it. So
yeah,
like if you're capturing
yeah.
the archetypes.
Yeah, I have an author's note in all of my Greek mythology books that says like the beauty of myth is that it changes as it's
Hmm.
retold over and over and over, and it changes to fit the landscape that the speaker or the writer is in, and they interpret it. So like my Greek myth stories like do not follow existing accounts to the letter. Like I have remixed them to make them
Hmm.
fucking romance novels. The originals are not romance novels.
Right.
But I've kept a lot of the like humanity and the core themes kind of the same within them. My Hades and Persephone novella is very different in some ways because I did change that. He doesn't go and kidnap. This is like chapter 2, so it's not a spoiler.
Yeah.
But like in mine, I didn't want him kidnapping her, even though that's what the myth is. I was
Yeah.
like, no, I want her to be fed up with her shitty mom, so she just walks into hell herself. As the myth reteller, I'm projecting, like I'm putting my shit into that story, but like that's the point of myths. So like
Right.
it's half the fun.
What is myth but trauma dumping made lyrical?
What is the writing if not? I remember one time, I don't read reviews. I do not read reviews. I
Yeah,
never read them. It's a bad idea. You shouldn't do it.
makes sense.
But I will remember the one of the few times I read a bad reviews before I learned to stop reading reviews of my own books. I remember I had one bad review where someone was like, "Oh, it feels like the author just basically wrote fan fiction." And I'm like, "Buddy, that's writing."
That's it.
Like I hate to
That's
break it to
it.
you, but like writing is fan fiction. Like that's what it is. Like Dante's Inferno. fan fiction.
Right.
Like
Bible fan fiction. Talking about Christian mythology.
literally.
It's Bible fan fiction.
It's literally Bible fan fiction, and then the
It's
Catholic Church adopted it as canon, and they were like, "Yeah,
insane.
that sounds right." And I'm like, "This is
Imagine.
fan fiction."
And everything's like a little bit of like a self-insert. You know what I mean? Like you can't write a character and not put a little bit of
It's
yourself
all
in there.
self-insert, and there's like I think there's they said there's like seven stories. Like we've been essentially repeating the same seven stories since
Oh,
the dawn of
right. Yeah,
time.
yeah, right. And
Yeah,
like the Joseph Campbell hero's
yeah,
journey,
yeah,
like the
yeah. Like
myth. Yeah.
we're all doing the same shit, buddy, just
Everything's
different flavors.
borrowing.
Everything's borrowing, everything's
Yeah.
remixed. It's fine. It's
It's fine.
fine.
Yeah, back to Rex.
Yeah,
I don't have like an even
that's
even a
fine. We don't need
clunky
one.
transition for that.
We don't need one. It's fine.
So I recommend the Bare Knuckle Bastard series by Sarah McLean, which is
Okay.
historical romance, and it is about, as you might
Mm.
guess, bare knuckle bastards, bastards who bare knuckle box,
Incredible.
and are criminals. And the first two are actually fairy tale retellings. The first one is Rumpelstiltskin, and then the second one, Brazen and the Beast, is Beauty and the Beast. But the third one, Daring and the Duke, is an Apollo and
Mm.
Serene retelling, which I had never heard this myth until like
What a
I
plot
heard
twist.
Sarah McLean talking about how that's what she based it on.
Oh, love
So,
that. I'm literally writing this down as you're saying it. Excellent. I love that. Okay, I would have to say some of my favorite God retellings. They're in like a modern alternative universe, but they are still very much gods with powers. They are ancient beings.
yes.
They are gods. Is Alyssa Thorne's Court of the Underworld series. So
Okay.
another worlds of interconnected standalones, but she has Hades, she has Medusa. The first book is
Love
actually
that.
Asterion, and Asterion is
Oh.
the Minotaur's human name is Asterion. So it's a
Oh, I didn't know
Minotaur.
that.
It's a Minotaur retelling. She has Hermes, and then she also has Thanatos, Charon, and Erebus also have there's I think
Oh,
there's
I
like
love that.
seven. No, there's more than that 'cause she also has some Roman goddesses now. You're in for a treat. There's like
Yeah.
nine or ten of them. They're all interconnected standalone, so you could binge, you can pick
Phenomenal.
and choose, whatever. It takes place in an alternate universe where the gods came back. So like
Okay.
year of our Lord 2027 or whatever, Hades comes back and is like, "You guys have fucked this up. I'm going to take over. I'm gonna like take some shit over now." So like he does have a big business and like, he is kind of that CEO, but also
Yeah.
like he's a fucking god. So like there's all the magic and all the
Right.
fantasy because like he's still very much a god.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's interesting.
I
Yeah.
love Alessa's Crow of the Underworld series because it combines that like modern sort of
Yeah.
like take on things, but also like they are still 100% like ancient gods with power. Like they have
Right.
powers. And it's, oh my God, they're so good. The Asterion one is like chef's kiss.
Yeah. I didn't know he had a name. I didn't know he had like a, which I
Once
guess
upon a
is like
time.
half the point of the myth. I feel like like the reclamation of the Minotaur myth is like he doesn't even have a name. It's like Frankenstein's monster. You know what I mean? Like,
Greek mythology is so tricky because there's not like one source. So like in some
right,
sources he's named
exactly.
this and then yeah. Anyway, yeah, it's one of the alleged maybe sort of names of the Minotaur. But we're talking like Crete, the Minotaur, that guy. That's book one in the series.
Very nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. I love a
Delicious.
maze. I love a maze in a romance book novel.
And there is a maze.
There's something about a maze.
Something about a maze.
Something
They're
about a
sexy.
maze.
I don't know what to tell you.
Okay, so my next one is RM Virtues Drag Me Up. It's a part of a series. The first book is Drag Me Up,
Mm,
and it's Hades and Persephone, and
okay.
Hades owns a casino, and she's an aerial silks performer, and she's
Hmm.
trans, is a trans Persephone, and demisexual Hades. So,
Love.
and listener for longtime listeners, RM Virtues is also the author of the sleep paralysis demon book, Sing Me to Sleep. So you're in for that
Mm.
kind of freaky, basically.
Say less. I read a door romance last week.
That okay, wait. So Unhinged, yes, we also did
Unhinged.
that. A genuinely good book, But your story reminded me, made me realize,
It's a myth
like,
retelling.
it's a fucking myth retelling because I knew about the Greek stuff, but I was like, oh my God, no, it is.
Unhinged and erotic door romance is it is
Genuinely
a
heartwarming. Like,
so heartwarming. I read it for shits and gigs, and like 30% in, I was like, oh shit, I'm enjoying this. This is
yeah,
so lovely. And the door is sentient, and then it makes perfect fucking sense to me because she
yeah,
explains that
obviously.
the door is made from oak, and oak is one of Zeus's sacred trees,
He
and
fucked
oh
a tree.
no, Zeus fucked a tree that was a dryad, so the door is half dryad, and that's why the
Oh,
door
yeah.
is sentient. And
Yep.
then the door is trying to become a human, and Zeus and Hera have made a bet. And I'm reading it, I'm like, no, this makes perfect fucking sense.
You're like, I'm
Like,
in it. Yeah, actually.
I'm in it. I have no
Yeah.
qualms now. Because before I was like,
Yeah.
sentient door, how did we get there?
It's
Not to knock the
crazy.
world building. But then I'm reading it and I was like, oh my God, no, that makes perfect
Like, no, it
sense.
actually makes
Zeus fucked
sense.
everything. That
Zeus
makes
fucked a
sense.
tree. Yeah.
Unhinged,
I love
which was
romance.
not on my list, but that is a myth
I love
retelling, and
romance.
I do recommend it.
Well,
An
listener, we
erotic
have a
door
whole
romance.
episode dedicated to Unhinged where it's just
Yes.
me telling my sister who has like no context about this book that I've
Excellent.
read. Oh,
So good. So good.
insane. Insane.
It's great. My next one is coming out later this year, so you will have to wait for it, but you can pre-order now. Is Of Prophecies and Pomegranates by T.C.
Love
Craven.
it.
And it is incredible. It is also an ancient, they are gods with power. It is a true, true, true myth retelling.
Okay.
Like it is an ancient setting. They are gods with powers. Like TC does an amazing job with the story. It is absolutely one of my favorite Hades and Persephone retellings, and it is just what I love, which is like ancient
Yeah.
proper retelling. She handles characters with like emotional complexity so well, and for someone who has like built a large portion of their life around Hades and Persephone retellings, I felt like I was reading the story for the first time. Like it is unbelievable. So check that out. Get it on pre-order so you don't forget. But it's
Yeah.
of prophecies and pomegranates by T.C. Craven.
Very
So good.
nice. Yeah. I feel like those are always the best, like retell the ones where you're like, I've heard the
Yeah.
story a million times, but I'm still like, what's gonna happen
Yeah.
next? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So my next is The Magnolia Sword by Sherry Thomas, and that's a
Oh,
Mulan
okay.
retelling. Yes. So it's Mulan insofar as like it's, ancient China and she
Yeah.
has to dress as like a man to go fight in the war, but there's also like she like joins this like elite like operative team
Yeah.
and like there's a secret prince and like who may also be like her fated enemy like with like a Romeo and Juliet like
Ooh.
Montague Capulet kind of like
Oh, love.
scenario.
Huh. Love that. Love that.
So, The Magnolia Sword by Sherry Thomas. And I love Sherry Thomas like she knows how to like punch you in the
Wow.
gut and then like make you sigh happily by the end.
Incredible. I would have to say another one. It's the last Hades and Persephone one that I have. But it is Receiver of Many by Rachel Alexander,
Okay.
which is a trilogy that covers like a lot of the Hades and Persephone story because the third book goes
Okay.
into when they like have kids, like Zagreus and stuff, which is
Oh.
like not often touched on. That one is also an ancient Greek retelling where like it
Yeah.
takes place in ancient Greece and their gods, but that one is good and it is a very explicit. It is very
Yeah.
spicy. So it's very good. But that's like an old like a classic. So that's Receiver of Many, which is like absolutely delicious. It's so good.
Yeah. Love it.
Mm.
I didn't even know they had kids. Why did I think that like, you know what? It's probably the fault of Lore Olympus that I thought that like Hades couldn't have kids. Like Hades is the god of the dead, so like he can't
Yeah,
have
yeah,
kids or
yeah.
whatever. Okay, so I will say this is a legend retelling. It's a King Arthur retelling, but Gwen and Art are not in love
Ooh.
by Lex
Oh,
Croucher, and it's very
I have
queer.
I have that. I haven't read it yet.
Yeah.
I've heard it's very good. But I'm trying to think what my other ones were. I know so many, and then like I get asked about them, and like my whole brain goes
I've
blank.
never read a book ever.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I actually like don't read. I don't know
What are you
how to read.
talking
I don't know
about?
what you're
I
talking
I don't
about.
know how to read.
I
I'm
don't know how to
Jared.
read.
I'm 19 years old and I never fucking learned how
I'm
to read.
Jared. I'm 19 years old, and I don't know how to read. I will say, like, probably, I think, like, the last one that I have or know is the Blood Lake Chronicles, which is a series
Mm,
by Amy Quiverlainen. That is a bunch of retellings, kind of like
okay.
not like crammed in. Sounds like they don't fit, but they definitely do. It's like an original plot line that features a lot of the characters you know and
Hmm.
love from
Okay.
like Arthurian myth and from like
Oh,
Celtic
nice.
myth and Gaelic myth. So
Okay.
like Merlin's a character in
Love
it.
it.
Like yeah, so like it's an original plot line, but then there's like all of these characters from like Gaelic, Celtic, and
Hmm.
Arthurian myth that like
Yeah.
pop up.
Hmm.
And it's one of my favorite trilogies that I think like is really slept on in terms of like romantasy series. It's like so good.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I love
that's a
that.
really,
Yeah.
really good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I
a good
love
one.
that. I'm like scrolling.
I
Actually, the
know.
whole plot of this podcast is just me like like scamming people into giving me more recommendations.
I
Like,
mean, I
ha!
get it. I get it.
So I have two more. I
Okay.
haven't read either of these, but like people whose opinions I trust like
Yeah.
liked them. So like
Yeah.
that they're on my TBR, but The Road of Bones by Demi Winters, which is
Okay.
Icelandic and Norse, like enemies to
Okay.
lovers, our main gal's on the run from assassins. Like
Okay.
there seems to be a little bit of a love triangle, but that's definitely resolved by the first book. So if
Nice.
you like love triangles, I
Okay.
personally have used to love triangle, like obviously a big Twilight, but can't do them anymore. But
Okay.
some people still really like them.
There.
And then Never Look Back by Lilium
Okay.
Rivera is an Orpheus and Eurydice YA
Oh,
Afro Latina in the Bronx, like magical realism, evil spirit. They have to battle evil spirits while also,
I love
being
that.
teens in love. So,
I lied. I do have one more that's on my TBR that I'm really excited about, and I'm like 6 years behind on this one. But it is Black Leopard, Red Wolf
ooh,
By Marlon James, and he is a Jamaican writer, and it pulls on both African history and mythology.
oh yeah,
Um, I don't know which myths specifically, but I know that it pulls on like a
yeah,
bunch of them. So it's a couple of different myths and then like also some like African history as well. So Black
nice.
Leopard, Red Wolf is one that's like been on my TBR for like a hot minute. So I'm excited to get back into that one. And then this is the other one that I see a lot of folks reading that I'm excited about, and I still haven't gotten to, which is Children of Blood and Bone.
Oh yes,
I know
yeah,
that one's like,
that's
yeah,
been on yeah for a long time.
it's been on my
It's
list.
been on
It's
my
been on my
TBR.
list for like a long time. I
It's on
know.
my list.
I also just
Um,
read The Nightblood Prince by Molly Chang,
hmm.
which now that I think about it, I do not think is a myth or a legend at all. Um, hmm. Well, it's still really good. It is it's like it is a romantasy, I would say.
Yeah.
And it is not based on any one period, but it is set in an ancient China world.
Okay.
So like it is
Okay.
inspired by ancient China. And there is a girl who gets a prophecy when she's born that like basically I'm gonna butcher the synopsis, but like like she's gonna bring peace to like the warring kingdom.
Yeah.
So she's like immediately betrothed to the crown prince, and like her family's
Hmm.
like plucked from poverty and like they're moved into the castle. So like she grows up this whole life like as this like, oh, she's perfect. She's gonna marry the prince, like da 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 da. Da. And the prince does love her because they've grown up next to each other, like always knowing that they're
Right.
gonna get married. Well, then the enemy prince comes in as like the dark horse love
Hmm.
interest and he's a vampire. And I know. And he's very like, hey, everything that your prince and like the Capitol is telling you is like a lie, like it's propaganda. Like, come with me and I'll like
Oh,
show you the truth. And she's like, I don't really want to fuck with either of you. I just want to go live in quiet. And they're like, you can't do that. So it's like a two, like
yeah.
there's these two princes. One kind of represents the regime, and one is like the
Yeah.
rebellion, and like they both like her, and one's a vampire, and like I ate that shit
It's a
up.
vampire. That's so I can't get over that. Like, what a fucking
I love
plot
it.
twist.
I love it. It's so good. It's so good. Well, like the whole time they're like, how does this like other faction, like how do they keep winning? Like we're
Yeah.
this huge country, like we have this huge military, like the war is gonna be over any day, like they're gonna get decimated, and then they're not getting
Because they're
defeated.
fucking
And
vampires.
it's so good. It's so good. It's so good.
Incredible. Incredible.
No notes. Like no notes. I just realized it's not really like a myth or a retelling of any type, but it pulls
Like
on a lot of like
vampire
ancient story,
mythology.
folklore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So, Molly, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on all of the social media networking sites under the Bibliophile Blonde. That is my handle on literally everything. You could Gmail me. That's my Gmail address too. If you really wanted to email me, you can. But I'm chronically online. So if you say hi, I will say hi back.
Do you have a book coming out? A new book coming out anytime soon?
Hopefully, in the next few months, I will have the next book out in my Scottish paranormal romance series. So it is called The Sea Siren's Serenade, and it is a interconnected, like standalone as always, but it is a cursed fae prince and the sea siren
Ooh,
who he has to team up with to break the curse, but she has ulterior motives, and oh no,
I
how will
love
it play
that.
out?
Oh no. We may have
Oh no,
we may have to bang it out.
we're
I
gonna
don't
have to
know.
bang it out.
Ah, you forced my hand.
Oh no. So keep an eye. That's coming out hopefully in the next few months.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much for coming on. It's
Yeah.
been so much fun.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
And listener, you can find us on Instagram threads and TikTok at We Read It One Night. You can email us, we read it one night at gmail.com. And don't forget to leave a rating and review wherever you're listening. Rating and reviews are like the number one free, easy 5-second way that you can support the podcast and you can help help us build out this community and give your feedback. And if you have a author or a topic or a book that you want me to cover, leave that in review or slide into my DMs. Let me know. I'm always looking for listener suggestions, and I am not creative enough to do this all on my own. So I would love for you guys to let me know what you are interested in hearing about and hearing episodes about. Godspeed, comrades.